Quiet. Something doesn't feel right.
They crossed here.
Let's go over, wherever we can find a crossing. Builder, you stay with the horses. Split up and search the grounds.
In that house.
Perrin, you alright? Let's go.
Useful to know the difference between vision and reality.
Whatever you're doing to me.
Left in a hurry.
There's something you need to see. He was alive when they did this.
What could do this?
I don't know. We'll stay in that village by the river tonight.
Aren't you coming?
I prefer to sleep under the stars.
Suit yourself.
They're not your pack, you know.
When we speak of Randall Thor's journey, it is tempting to imagine it only in terms of conquest and struggle, the dragon reborn who battled forsaken United Nations and faced the Dark One at Sheol Ghul. Yet the true heart of Rand's story is not found in the clash of armies or the blazing fire of the one power. It lies in something quieter, something more human. The transformation of a young man crushed by burden into someone who could finally find meaning, even solace, in the very destiny that once threatened to destroy him. The breaking point. Before we can speak of healing, we must recall the breaking. Rand's descent into cold ruthlessness in the gathering storm represents one of the most harrowing arcs in modern fantasy. He becomes a figure who believes that mercy is weakness, that compassion is an indulgence he can no longer afford. He distances himself from everyone, even those who love him most. On Dragonmount, Rand nearly surrenders to despair. Staring into the abyss, he considers ending his own life, convinced that his existence only spreads pain and destruction. It is in that moment, however, that a revelation strikes. If he must die, let it be not in despair, but in defiance. Not as a prisoner of destiny, but as someone who chooses to embrace it. This moment mirrors countless archetypal stories. Christ in Gethsemane, who prays for the cup of suffering to pass from him, yet accepts it for the sake of humanity. Siddhartha Gautama, beneath the Bodhi tree, confronting Mara's temptations before awakening to enlightenment. In literature, we find echoes of Frodo Baggins at Mount Doom, realizing the ring's corruption cannot be borne forever, yet pressing forward until salvation comes from another's hand. Rand joins this lineage of figures who are transformed not by triumph alone, but by a redefinition of what triumph means. From burden to purpose. What changes after Dragonmount is not the scale of Rand's power. He remains the mightiest channeler of the age, but the way he understands that power. Previously, saidin felt like a chain around his neck, a poisoned gift that threatened his sanity and endangered everyone near him. After his epiphany, the same power becomes something different, not a curse, but a tool to serve the pattern. This philosophical shift cannot be overstated. Where once he believed himself doomed to madness and destruction, he begins to see himself as a necessary instrument, a thread deliberately woven by the wheel. In Towers of Midnight and A Memory of Light, this acceptance radiates through his actions. He no longer fights against his fate, but with it, leaning into the inevitability of the last battle, not as a victim, but as a willing participant. And here we see a profound psychological truth. Suffering is amplified by resistance. To feel trapped is to double the pain. But to see hardship as meaningful, even sacred, is to endure with dignity. As Viktor Frankl wrote in Man's Search for Meaning, in some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning, such as the meaning of a sacrifice. Rand embodies this principle. His torment, once meaningless, becomes purposeful. The philosophy of renewal. Another element of Rand's recovery lies in his renewed relationship with the world itself. After Dragonmount, he begins to smile again. He notices the warmth of the sun, the simple beauty of clouds, the quiet resilience of life continuing despite shadow. This is more than sentimentality. It is a reawakening to what he is fighting for. For a long time, Rand fought to fulfill prophecy, to defeat the Dark One, to bear the title of Dragon Reborn. But after his breaking, he fights for life itself, for laughter, for green fields, for the possibility of joy. This echoes the philosophy of Albert Camus, who spoke of finding meaning in an absurd universe not by escaping it, but by embracing it. Camus writes of Sisyphus, condemned to push his boulder eternally. The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. In a similar way, Rand's happiness does not come from escaping his duty, but from redefining it as a labor worth bearing. The legacy of healing. Yet we must not mistake Rand's shift for a magical erasure of trauma. To endure what he endured. The voices of Luz Therin, the weight of madness, the isolation of command, leaves scars that cannot fully vanish. What the narrative gives us is not perfect healing, but the possibility of recovery. After Shaiol Ghul, Rand lives on in a new body, free of the one power, free of the taint, free of the unbearable spotlight. For the first time since leaving Emond's Field, he has a chance to be simply human again. To wander the world, to touch the soil without armies behind him, to rediscover the self that was buried beneath the mantle of Dragon Reborn. This raises a crucial question. What does long-term recovery look like for someone like Rand? History gives us few analogues, but we might consider the aftermath of great wars. Soldiers who survive do not simply return to who they were. They carry invisible wounds, but many also develop resilience, perspective, even gratitude for life. Rand's journey suggests something similar, not a return to innocence, but an integration of suffering into a deeper wisdom. And perhaps this is the most radical thing the Wheel of Time offers, that even the savior of the world deserves rest, deserves peace, deserves a future beyond sacrifice. Conclusion. The solace of acceptance. It is the story of a human being who learns to carry unimaginable weight without being crushed by it. His breaking on Dragonmount, his rebirth into acceptance, and his quiet departure after Shaiol Ghul all testify to a universal truth. That meaning, not power, is what sustains us. In this sense, Rand's art transcends fantasy and becomes a parable. It tells us that even in our darkest struggles, when despair whispers that surrender is the only escape, there remains the possibility of renewal. That suffering, when given purpose, can transform from a burden into a calling. That even those who carry the heaviest fates may yet find moments of joy, of laughter, of simple human connection. When the wheel turns and stories fade into legend, the Dragon Reborn will be remembered for his battles. But perhaps what we should remember most is not the fire he wielded, nor the nations he commanded, but the lesson he lived, that even at the edge of breaking, one can find solace. Not by escaping destiny, but by embracing it with open hands. And in that embrace, Rand al'Thor became not only the savior of his age, but a symbol of what it means to be human in the face of impossible weight.